Hello students, welcome to the channel. In this video, we'll discuss the fourth passage of the May 2021 US SATs reading section. This is the social science passage, adapted from David Rotman. It pays to be smart. Our economy is increasingly ruled by a few dominant firms. We see them everywhere, from established giants Amazon, Facebook, Google, Apple, and Walmart, to fast-growing newcomers like Airbnb, Tesla, and Uber. There have always been large companies and outright monopolies, but there's something distinctive about this new generation of what some economists call superstar companies. They appear across a broad range of business sectors and have gained their power, at least in part, by adeptly anticipating and using digital technologies that foster conditions where a few winners essentially take all. So this paragraph introduces the idea of superstar companies, which are a little different from the monopolies of yore, where these companies have amassed such power, in part due to their presence in the digital domain, where the idea of winner takes all is prevalent. And we know that there are a number of reasons why digital success begets more success, right? There is obviously the effect of um, more viewers getting more viewers and more viewers leading to greater conversations and improving the bottom lines of these companies. So all of those are part of the reason why these new age technology companies are superstar companies and corporations. According to recent research by economists at Harvard and MIT, the share of sales by superstar companies, which the authors define as the four largest firms in a given industry, has gone up sharply in all the sectors they looked at, from transportation to services to finance. The trend towards superstar firms is accelerating, says Lawrence Katz, a Harvard economist and co-author of the study. It has become more uniform across industries and developed economies during the past decade or so. These companies' dominance is particularly strong in markets undergoing rapid technological change. Katz says that's probably because of the wide disparity in how well companies take advantage of new advances. In other words, you have to be the smartest company in your field, or you might as well not bother. So part of the reason that superstar companies grow so fast, and this is not just true for technology, but for a number of other sectors like finance, transportation, is that they're able to uh, they're able to absorb new ideas very quickly, right? They are able to take advantage of new advances, and that's partly because of their size, they get economies of scale, their influence, and all of this contributes to the big becoming bigger. In itself, that might not be bad, but the authors identified a deeply troubling result of an economy where just a few top-tier companies dominate. One of the economic truths of much of the 20th century was that the portion of the country's overall income that went to labor was constant. As the economy grew, workers got a proportionate share of that growing pie. But labor's share of the national income has been shrinking over the past few decades. This is true in many countries, and the decline speeded up in the US in the 2000s. So the problem with this superstar company, uh, so to say, situation is that it has come at the cost of the growth of the labor, the working class, right? Its share in the overall economy has declined, and this has become especially so in the 21st century. The trend puzzles economists. Some suggest it reflects the rise of cheap robots that can do the jobs of human workers, but the data isn't convincing. Instead, Katz and his co-authors blame the emergence of the superstar companies. As these companies grow and become more efficient and more adept at using digital technologies, they need fewer workers relative to their soaring revenues. The fact that these labor frugal firms have so much of the market share in their sectors means labor gets a smaller portion of the nation's overall income. So part of the reason for why the labor market and labor incomes are shrinking, one of the reasons that was attributed was the emergence of robots, which might be displacing labor, but that is not true. According to the research done by the authors, they feel it is because the superstar companies are so good at improving efficiency at the cost of the labor that they employ, that a smaller share of overall national wealth now goes to the labor. The rise of the superstar companies also might help explain another disturbing economic trend. Despite the proliferation of impressive new advances in software, digital devices, and artificial intelligence over the last decade, and the great profits generated by Silicon Valley, economic growth in the US and other developed countries has been sluggish. In particular, an economic measure called total factor productivity, which the passage tells us the portion of output that's not explained by the amounts of input used in production, which is meant to reflect innovation, has been dismal. How can overall growth be so lackluster while the high-tech sector is booming? So the other problem, apart from the shrinking um, uh, labor incomes, is the fact that the boost and the boom in the tech sector has not translated to the broader economy. Right, the broader economy is growth is sluggish. So how can overall growth be so lackluster when one sector is booming, and that means that the boom has not translated to the wider economy? Economists with the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, think they have found the answer. It turns out that productivity at the top companies in various sectors, what the OECD economists call the frontier firms, is growing robustly. These are the companies making the best use of the internet, software, and other technologies to streamline their operations and create new market opportunities. But most companies aren't actually harnessing new technologies very effectively, and the relatively poor productivity of these laggards, say Australian OECD economist Dan Andrews, is dragging down the overall economy. So it's like a virtuous cycle for the top companies, the superstar companies, where they use the best innovations, they use the best human resources, they use software to kind of keep growing while the laggards stay behind, and the gap between the superstars and the laggards widens. Okay. And then there is these two figures, so we'll come to them later. 32, a central idea in the passage is that successful sectors of the modern economy include only companies that are willing to use innovative technologies, have experienced a shift towards the centralization of power by a few companies, are forecasted to experience faster labor growth than other sectors, have access to greater resources than other sectors. So it's B, right? One of the main ideas is that there are these superstar companies that have taken over most sectors, and power is centralized by a few firms in most sectors. And that is one hallmark of the modern economy. 33, the author of the passage develops his argument primarily by analyzing the effect of technological advances on future market trends, examining the process by which one company became a leader in its industry, comparing historical national labor data to that of present national labor data, presenting research concerning the rise of a subset of companies. So let's break it down, right? If you look at how the passage is organized, the author starts by presenting an overview of superstar companies, then cites research by economists at Harvard and MIT, which discusses how these companies became leaders in their field, and then looks at the consequences of this phenomenon. So it is option D, right? He develops his argument by presenting research that concerns the rise of these superstar companies. He's not analyzing the effect of technological advances on future market trends. He's interested in what is happening in the economy now. So A is out. He's not examining the process by which one company became a leader. He's talking about superstar companies in all sectors, right? So it's not just one sector and one company. And he's not comparing historical national labor data to present. One of the implications of the rise of superstar companies is that labor incomes as a proportion of the total output of the economy have declined. But that comparison of historic data is not done. 34. Which choice best supports the conclusion that in certain industries, companies have little chance of succeeding if they cannot obtain the market control held by superstar companies? Okay, so 5 to 8. 5 to 8. 14 to 19. 14 to 19. Okay. 28 to 30. 28 to 30. And 73 to 77. 73 to 77. Okay. So it should be, it's almost finishing here, right? There's nothing after that. So that 77 feels a little odd. The last part. Okay. So that companies have little chance of succeeding if they cannot obtain the market control. Okay. So 5 to 8 say there have always been large companies, but there is something distinctive about this new generation of superstar companies. So this is presenting information of superstar companies. So this wouldn't be my answer. The share of sales by superstar companies have gone up sharply in all the sectors they looked at. Okay, so this, I'll come back to this. You have to be the smartest company in your field or you might as well not bother. Okay. But most companies aren't actually harnessing new technologies, and the relatively poor productivity of these laggards is dragging down the overall economy. So the question was, in that companies have little chance of succeeding. Okay. So it's about market control, right? So market control, the share of sales. So that is market control, right? So these companies are not able to, the junior companies or the new companies or the upstarts are not able to succeed because the market control of the superstar companies is giant. So option B. Okay. The passage most directly suggests that in recent years, companies that have been less successful than superstar companies have tended to fail to capitalize on emerging technologies that may provide a competitive economic advantage, neglect to hire the most skilled professionals in their industries, focus on developing groundbreaking technologies that may benefit only their respective markets, vie with a smaller pool of competitors for market share. So I think it's A, because there was this mention of how it is the superstar companies that are able to capitalize on emerging technologies, right? I think it was here somewhere. Yeah, here, this part. These are the companies making the best use of the internet, software, and other technologies to streamline their operations and create new market opportunities. So that's line 67 to 70. That should be the evidence. Line 67 to 70. That's not even in the options. Okay, so let's work with the options. So I'll just clear these first. Okay, let's. Now, what are the options for this? 1 to 5, 9 to 13. So 1 to 5, 9 to 13. Okay. What else? 24 to 26, 49 to 52. 24 to 26 and 49 to 52. Okay, this part, right? 49 to 52 is the fact and income, right? The fact, that's not 49 to 52. Okay, the numbering is a little off. This is here. Okay. Our economy is increasingly ruled by a few dominant firms. Okay, so that's fine. They appear across a broad range of and they have gained their powers by adeptly anticipating and using digital technologies, right? So it is option B. These companies' dominance is particularly strong in markets undergoing rapid technological change. That probably because of the wide disparity. Okay, so option C also looks good. I'm just looking at exact these and change. Okay. Yeah, so I think it's the next line would have been a good evidence for what I'm looking for, but not the one that's underlined, right? So if I'm looking at evidence for, yeah, so I think that, and this is about the labor income, right? So I think B is better. Yeah, so B is a better answer. Okay. As used in line 12, conditions most nearly means Foster conditions where a few winners essentially take all. Foster conditions. These companies foster conditions, foster circumstances, right? They foster the circumstances, the conditions that winner takes all. It's not restrictions or demands because you're fostering a kind of environment, right? And the best word for environment is circumstances. It's not qualifications. As used in line 32, deeply most nearly means this one. Okay, but the authors identified a deeply troubling result. A deeply troubling result is profoundly troubling, right? Something which is very troubling, profoundly troubling. Broadly troubling doesn't make sense because if you're trying to say broadly troubling, it doesn't really fit the context for troubling because you're not, broad is kind of used when you're talking about a range, right? Yeah, but not for troubling. So I don't like that. Thoughtfully doesn't fit the context and obscurely also doesn't fit the context. So profoundly troubling is the best answer. In context, the last two paragraphs serve mainly to, okay, so what are the last two paragraphs doing? The rise of the superstar companies helps explain another disturbing trend, and that is about how they have kind of, created a monopoly on innovation in a way. Right. So the disturbing trend of examine why technological advances outpace economic growth, demonstrate how workforce requirements affect employment rates, illustrate why company productivity increases yearly earnings, clarify how efficient planning leads to new market possibilities. So I think it's A, right? Because technological advances have happened, but the economic growth has not caught up. Those advances have not been translated to the broader economy, right? So technological advances have outpaced economic growth, option A. Okay, is that, okay, we have three more questions, right? Which claim about the manufacturing and business services sector is best supported by the figures? Manufacturing, okay. Manufacturing sector and business services, okay. So in frontier firms, productivity improved dramatically, but not in non-frontier firms in manufacturing and also in business. Yeah, so it's productivity, right? By 2004, the average percentage change in total factor productivity for frontier firms in business services was greater than for frontier firms in manufacturing. Okay, business services by 2004, it doesn't seem to have changed that much, right? Yeah, percentage change. It went from 0 to something. So it does look correct, huh? that for frontier firms in, oh, business and manufacturing, sorry. Business is 0 to 20 and manufacturing is 0. Yeah, so it is true. For business is greater than manufacturing. Okay, so I'm going to keep 8. It's a good answer. By 2013, the total factor productivity for non-frontier firms reflected growth resulting from expansion into new areas. So there is no mention of what the growth comes from, right? This is not something the graph talk about, so B can't be correct. The average percentage change in total factor productivity. No, so average non-frontier firms in both, they showed an increase, right? Yeah, they both showed an increase. Whether it was, yeah, so this is not correct. Obviously, the increase was not as high as it was for frontier firms. Fluctuations for frontier firms to frontier firms fluctuations. I think business had more fluctuations. Yeah, no, manufacturing had fewer fluctuations. Business definitely had more. Yeah, so wait, is it business? I think manufacturing has more, no? Manufacturing keeps going up and down. Yeah, business is almost always trending up except for at a few places. So they're not consistent at any rate. So A is the best answer. I'm just going to confirm frontier firms in business is greater than for frontier firms. Yeah, okay. Taken together, the figures best support which conclusion about total factor productivity from 2001. Non-frontier firms in the business services sector were more profitable during this period than non-frontier firms in the manufacturing sector. No, we are not comparing profitability, right? We are comparing productivity. So that's not something I can talk about here. So A is out. Productivity increases in the business services corresponding to productivity decreases in the manufacturing. No, that's not what it is showing. The disparity in productivity between frontier and non-frontier persons generally increased over this period. Yeah. So in both sectors, the disparity in productivity increased generally, right? As you went to the right. So C is a good answer. It also goes with what the passage is arguing. Manufacturing sector was more productive because it tended to adapt more readily to technological advances than the business sector. No, this is increase in productivity, right? We don't know about total productivity. This is percentage change. So D is wrong, right? It's talking about total productivity and which is higher. According to figure 1, in approximately which year was the average percent change in total factor productivity since 2001 greatest for frontier firms? Frontier firms, figure 1. Okay, so figure 1, the greatest since 2001 was in which year? I think it will be 2007, right? Because the move from 2006 to 7 is the steepest, I would say. So 2007. Yeah, option B. Okay, so that's question 32 to 42. So let's grade those. Yeah, 32 to 42, BD. Okay, 1 second. Yeah. CABB, 34. 34 is C. Okay. 34 is C. Okay, we'll come back to this. ABBD, ABBD, AACB, AACB. Okay, so we got one wrong. Companies have little chance of succeeding if they cannot obtain the market control held by superstar companies. Okay, 28 to 30. Oh, did I look at in other? Oh, right. It is those lines that we were looking at, right? So I mentioned, I think during the discussion that the next line would be a good answer. Why did I not choose it though? Yeah, in other words, you have to be the smartest company. Yeah, because the wide disparity is what, okay. Yeah, that's the better answer than what I chose, because this is specifically talking about that. I think I was not looking at the correct line numbers. I was looking at the ones before, while the evidence was actually the lines after that. Okay, so that was a silly mistake, but I hope the exercise was still useful in terms of understanding the passage and the questions. This was passage 4 of the reading section of this test. We have just one passage left to make the solutions of. Apart from that, the entire test has been solved. So make sure you check those videos out. I'll see you guys in a new video then. Take care. Bye-bye.